Hello everyone, my name is Ruach, and I'm making this video for the Chag Shabaout or Shabua Aleph Tav, and that's coming up actually, if you want to say this Wednesday. That's the Moed or the Chag of Shabaout on this Wednesday, and I'll explain that, and that's why I'm making this video, so I can explain what I am talking about. Anyway, we're going to be in the book of Jubilees, chapter 14, 15, and 16, and we're also going to be in Deuteronomy chapter 16, all right, and some of Genesis as well. Anyway, I've been all over the map on Facebook right now because this is my 7th day without a cigarette, and most of y'all know that my wife passed on the 6th of May, so I've been kind of really wishy-washy on the Facebook, but that's okay. But this here is very important, and so that's why I wanted to get it out. Well, it may seem, well, it's important to me, all right. And the crazy thing is on Wednesday, the 30th of May, I'm going to be turning 59 as well. But it's also the Chag of Shabaout. And the reason I'm saying that is I'm going to sit here and give you the information that I've found, and you can take it or leave it. But anyway, it'll be entirely up to you. Let's go ahead and pray real quick. Heavenly Father, Yahuwah, we pray for your wisdom and your understanding. And if I am wrong, let me know. And if they are wrong, let them know. We want to do thy will always, Yahuwah. In Yahushua HaMashiach's mighty name we pray. Hallelujah. Anyway, when I was studying this, I had a friend from Virginia named Yahusef. He says, well, what if Shavuot is a 7-day festival like Matzah and Sukkot? I'm like, well, I don't know. I had never heard of anything like that before. So it kind of threw me off for a loop. And when somebody challenges or gives me something like that, I got to tear into it. I got to figure out, okay, where are they getting this information? Why are they getting this information? And who has this information? And so that's exactly what I did. And I found something that just amazed me above and beyond anything you could possibly imagine. The first one I'm going to read is the book of Jubilees, chapter 14. And this is Abram, where he had the animals and they were split in half. And the covenant, Yahuwah made the covenant with Abram at this particular time. Now, that we already know, that's already in the Tanakh, the Torah. We've read that in Genesis 1,000 times. But in Genesis, there is no date of when this took place. And I'm like, well, I searched the 66 books that we got, canon or scriptures or whatever, and there is no date in there when this covenant was made, this promise to Abraham. But when you go to the book of Jubilees, there's a date right there. And I'm like, well, this is kind of interesting. So I'll go ahead and read this. Chapter 14 in the book of Jubilees, verse 1. After these things, in the 4th year of this week, and on the new moon of the 3rd month, the word of Yahuwah came to Abram in a dream, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy defender, and thy reward will be exceedingly great. And he said unto him, Take me a heifer of 3 years, and a goat of 3 years, and a sheep of 3 years, and a turtle dove, and a pigeon. And he took all these things. In the middle of the month he dwelt at the oak of Mamre, which is in Hebron, near Hebron, and he built there an altar, and sacrificed all these, and poured their blood upon the altar, and divided them in the midst. Okay, so we know the rest of the story. But in verse 10 he said he took all these in the middle of the month. In verse 1 it says, new moon of the 3rd month. So now we have the third month, in the middle of the month, is when Yahuwah made this covenant with Abram. All right, so that would be like 3:15, maybe. You know, that's the middle of the month. So I'm throwing 3:15 out there because that's what it's going to be. This Wednesday is 3:15, the 30th of May. Okay, so here we have that first covenant with Abraham, and then we're going to go to. We'll continue on. I have the 3 chapters here, so I got to kind of read through them. I could read all 3 chapters, but it'd be a little boring for y'all, and I just want to pull up the dates. Okay, this one here. All right, well that's chapter 14. And let me go to chapter 15 real quick. And if you have the book of Jubilees, you can read along with me if you like. Okay, now this is chapter 15 in the book of Jubilees, verse 1. And this is a year later, in the 5th year, the 4th week of this Jubilee. You can see that there's a date there. Anyway, in the 5th year, the 4th week of this Jubilee, in the 3rd month, in the middle of the month, Abram celebrated the feast of first fruits of the grain harvest. All right, so here we got the 3rd month in the middle of the month, which is 3:15. And he offered a new offering unto the altar, and the fruits of the produce unto Yahuwah, and a heifer and a goat, and so on and so forth. And Yahuwah appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am Elohim, the Almighty. Approve thyself before me, and be thou perfect. And I will make a covenant between me and thee, and I will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and Elohim talked with him and said, Behold, my ordinance is with you, and thou shalt be the father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but the name from henceforth, even forever, shall be Abraham. So here, right here, we are at 3:15, 3rd month, 15th day, 2nd covenant with Abraham. Now his name is Abraham. So 2 covenants in a row with Abraham on 3:15, or at the 3rd month in the middle of the month. All right. So what I found was interesting is we can go back to our Bibles, look for this date, and it's not in our Bibles. I searched that Bible through and through, and this date is not in that Bible. Okay. So we have in the book of Jubilees, Abram got the covenant on 3:15. Then Abraham received this covenant on 3:15. So we're going to just keep going on here a little bit, and I'll make sure I'm not missing anything on this chapter here. Well, actually, I wouldn't mind reading this whole covenant or this whole chapter. And this part of what Yahuwah is saying to Abraham, and I will give to thee and to thy seed after thee the land where thou hast been sojourner, the land of Canaan, that thou mayest possess it forever, and I'll be your Elohim. And Yahuwah said unto Abraham, and as for thee, do thou keep my covenant, thou and thy seed after thee, and circumcise ye every male among you, and circumcise your foreskin, and it shall be a token of eternal covenant between me and you. And the child on the 8th day shall be circumcised. Every male throughout your generations, him that is born in the house, or whom you have bought with money, from any stranger whom you have acquired who is not of thy seed, he that is born in thy house shall surely be circumcised, and those whom thou hast bought with money shall be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an eternal ordinance. Okay? And the uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin on the 8th day, that soul shall be cut off from his people, for he has broken my covenant. This is a still standing covenant, folks. If you don't understand that. And the uncircumcised, And Elohim said unto Abraham, as for Sarai, thy wife, her name shall no more be called Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name, which means princess. Alright? And I will bless her and give thee a son by her, and I will bless him, and he shall become a nation, and kings of nations shall proceed from him. And Abraham fell on his face and rejoiced, and said in his heart, shall a son be born to him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bring forth? And Abraham said unto Elohim, oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And Elohim said, yea, and Sarah also shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name Yasak, and I will establish my covenant with him, an everlasting covenant, and for his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, also have I heard thee, and behold, I will bless him, and make him great, and multiply him exceedingly, and he shall begat 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will be established with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to thee in these days in the next year. So, with this covenant that Yahuwah is giving to Abraham right now, basically what's in verse 21, he says, my covenant will I establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to thee in these days in the next year. So basically what Yahuwah is saying is, next 3:15, Isaac's going to be born. And we'll see that here in these verses here shortly. Okay? And then verse 22, and he left off speaking with him, and Elohim went up from Abraham, and Abraham did according as Elohim had said unto him, and he took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and whom he had bought with his money, every male in the house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin. And on the self same day was Abraham circumcised, and all the men of his house, and those born in the house, and all those whom he had bought with money, for the children of the stranger were circumcised with him. This law is for all the generations forever, and there is no circumcision of the days, and no omission of one day out of the 8 days, for it is an eternal ordinance, ordained and written on the heavenly tablets. And everyone that is born, the flesh of those whose foreskin is not circumcised on the 8th day, belongs not to the children of the covenant which Yahuwah made with Abraham, but to the children of destruction. Nor is there moreover any sign on him that he is Yahuwah's, but he is destined to be destroyed and slain from the earth, and be rooted out of the earth, for he has broken the covenant of Yahuwah our Elohim. For all the angels in the presence and all the angels of sanctification have been so created from the day of their creation. And before the angels of the presence and the angels of sanctification he has sanctified Yasharel, Israel, that they should be with him and with his holy angels. Malach. And do thou command the children of Israel, and let them observe the sign of this covenant for their generations as an eternal ordinance, and they will not be rooted out of the land. For the command is ordained for a covenant, that they should observe it forever among all the children of Israel. For Ishmael and his sons and his brothers and Esau, Yahuwah did not cause to approach him, and he chose them not because they were the children of Abraham, because he knew them, but he chose Israel to be his people. Anyway, that's just that's chapter 15, and then we're gonna go to chapter 16. But basically, what we just saw just now in that book, in the book of Jubilees, chapter 14 and 15, these two covenants were made on 3:15, and it's not in our Bibles anywhere. Them two dates, okay? And what it gets even more interesting, but and I wrote something today just now that about Chag, C-H-A-G. It's what we call a festival, and it's in that's where we're in Deuteronomy chapter 16. That Chag is where all the males 3 times a year had to go where Yahuwah wanted them to go, wherever he placed his name. Now it used to be in the temple. So let's just say Joseph and Mary, or at least Joseph, had to go to Jerusalem 3 times a year, Matzah, Shabaout, and Sukkot. He had to go where Yahuwah placed his name. Okay, and Matzah was a 7-day festival. I believe Sukkot or Shabaout was a 7-day festival. They're both called Chags, and Sukkot also was a 7-day festival. So we have 3 7-day festivals throughout the year. But somewhere along the road, our Bibles, somehow that got erased. But that's not here nor there. What we have to do is look at the evidence throughout all the books that we have available to us, and then go from there. And this is something that everybody usually knows, but on 3:15, 3:16, the Israelites showed up at Mount Sinai, and that's when the covenant was made with the Israelites on this festival, or on this Chag, was the Feast of Weeks, and whether it's in Jashar, Book of Jubilees, or the Bible itself. This one actually has a date, okay? In all 3 of them books, it has a date, 3:15, 3:16, and it goes through a week-long worth of stuff where Moses was doing all this for all these other things. So, this Chag was a 3 or 7-day long Chag in the wilderness at Mount Sinai with Moses and the children of Yasharal. So, and that's just to see where I'm going with this, because Abram got the covenant, Abraham got the covenant, and Israel got the covenant, all on 3:15, 3:16, and so on and so forth. So then we'll find out later that in the book of I'm not quite sure where it's at, but it's in the book of Jubilees, that Noah got the covenant of the rainbow on the same Chag, on this 3:15. And I'm like, it's in the book of Jubilees, and I was like, well, wait a minute now. Noah got the covenant, Abram got the covenant, Abraham got the covenant, now Israel's got the covenant, and they're all on 3:15. I'm like, this 3:15 here is the covenant thingy, huh? You know, the covenant Chag. And so, and this is not in the New Testament, but I've heard 1,000 times over that we received the ruach hakodesh of Pentecost on Shabaout. Okay, a Shabaout, or what they call Pentecost. But so if that is the case, and all of these other Shabaots are on 3:15, more than likely we received the ruach hakodesh on 3:15, which they call Pentecost, but you know it's Shabaots. Anyway, and I'm just covering this here with you, but if you go to Deuteronomy chapter 16, you'll see these three chags, okay? And the chag of matzah starts with a full moon, and it ends 7 days later, okay? The chag of Sukkot starts on a full moon, and it ends 7 days later. So why wouldn't the chag of Shabaout start on a full moon and end 7 days later? We know the fact that matzah is the barley harvest. We know the fact that Shabaout is the wheat harvest, the two loaves of bread with leaven in it, a wave sheaf offering. So we already know that Shabaout, or the Feast of Weeks, is a festival, and it's a harvest festival. And we also know that Sukkot is a harvest festival that starts on full moon and ends 7 days later. So we have three harvest festivals, which are called chags, and I believe by the repetition as Yahuwah does things, I believe all three of them are 7 days long. And it will say that here when I get to chapter 16 in the book of Jubilees as well. Anyway, one would be, and these are the dates: 1:15 matzah, 3:15 Shabuot, or Feast of Weeks, or Chag of Weeks, Sukkot 7:15, the harvest of oil, the harvest of fruit, the harvest of nuts, your garden harvest. All the ending harvests of the year are gathered together for Sukkot, and then they have a great big celebration. Okay, so each one of them harvest festivals are 7 days long, and they start on a full moon. But anyway, let me get to chapter 16. Now, you may or may not agree with me. That's okay. Not everybody agrees with everybody, and it's just something that I found, and something that really interested me. And this year, it's actually on my 59th birthday, which is kind of odd, because as we're reading chapter 16 in the book of Jubilees, you would not believe who else was born on 3:15. Well, I'll tell you, Isaac was born on 3:15, and he was circumcised on the 8th day, 7 days after he was born, during the Feast of Weeks, or the Feast of Shabaout. Now, at that particular time, it looks like it was a 7-day festival, because he was born on 3:15, and then 8 days later he was circumcised, and that was the first covenant that was actually made with the correct timing that Yahuwah had talked to Abraham about. So anyway, also in the book of Jubilees, chapter 16, it shows where the feast of, or the Chag of Sukkot, Abraham was the first one to celebrate the Chag of Sukkot on this planet, and or on this earth. And I think it's kind of neat, because Sarah conceived on the 6th month, and then she didn't know she was pregnant until the 7th month, and that's when they threw the celebration of joy and happiness, because the promise of Yahuwah to Abraham was fulfilled, basically. A 91-year-old woman gets pregnant from a 100-year-old man. That's a miracle. So they were celebrating. I can't imagine 100 years old with his cane dancing up and down and having a good time. He was still, he would, 100 years today is really falling apart. I mean, everything's falling apart. 100 years back then, it was kind of like you were 60 years old. Okay, still pretty energetic and whatnot. So, but anyway, let me get on to chapter 16, the book of Jubilees. And this is what got me interested into it too, because a few years back when I was studying this, a man somewhere in Oregon or Washington, he says, you know, this might be a little strange, but right in plain sight, it tells us when Mary was, Miriam conceived. And it's in plain sight. And I was like, well, where's that at? You know, I never seen that before. And he showed me in Luke chapter 1, verse 26. And we'll get to that in a minute. And they disguise this, Luke chapter 1, verse 26, as talking about Elizabeth. But it's not what it says. If we read exactly what it says Miriam conceived Yahusha in the 6th month. Angel Gabriel came over in the 6th month. That's exactly what that says. So it's like, we can take and twist that around and say, well, they were talking about Elizabeth, but that's not what it says. You know, that's what doctrine tells us. But if we read the words that are right there, it says, Angel Gabriel or the Holy Spirit or the ruach HaKodesh came over Miriam in the 6th month. So that would have meant she would have found out she was pregnant in the 7th month, and 3:15, 9 months later, the Messiah would have been born on 3:15, the covenant date, and circumcised on the 8th day, just like Isaac that we were fixing to read right now in Jubilees chapter 16. Now, Isaac's birth date in our 66 canon Bible is not in there, okay? So, all of these dates that are in the Jubilees is not in our Bible. So, we can't say it's not, because our Bible doesn't disprove it, because there's no dates in our Bible. And we can't say that it is, because, well, if we go by the Bible only, without Jubilees or Jasher or Enoch, then we can just say, well, nobody knows the dates because they're not written. But in a lot of other books, even like Josephus and Philo and all these other books written during them times, and even like the Hagmanagi library that was in Egypt and the Dead Sea Scrolls, we pick up all of this stuff and compile it together and try and build the best information grid that we can build, and go off of that, so where our belief system will line up with. So if I believe that the Messiah and Isaac and all these covenants were made on 3:15, the Bible will not disavow what I just said, because them covenant dates are not in the Bible. But the one covenant date that is in the Bible is Mount Sinai with Moses and the children of Israel. So, with that being said, let me go ahead and read chapter 16. I don't want to get too long on this, because it's a lot of information. So, you guys can take it in, do what you want, and if you agree with it, great. If you don't, great. It's no sweat off of my brow, So, anyway, this is, I started it out on chapter 16, verse 11. And in the middle of the 5th month, this is Abraham, in the middle of the 5th month, he moved from thence and dwelt at the well of the oath. In the middle of the 6th month, Yahuwah visited Sarah and did unto her as he had spoken, and she conceived. So that was in the middle of the 6th month. And in the 6th month, and then this is Luke chapter 1, verse 26. I put them together side by side. Luke chapter 1, verse 26. And in the 6th month, angel Gabriel was sent from Elohim unto the city of Galilee, named Nazareth, And so in the 6th month, angel Gabriel was sent from Elohim to the city of Galilee, to a virgin espoused to a man whose name was Joseph, in the house of David, and the virgin's name was Miriam. And the angel came into her and said, Hail, be thou highly favored, Yahuwah is with thee, blessed art thou among women. And she bare okay. Now, that's where it stops in Luke. Okay? So, and you can go into Luke a little further and you can see where the Holy Spirit comes upon her, just not a couple verses down from where Angel Gabriel went to go visit her. So Angel Gabriel came to Miriam in the 6th month and told her this stuff. Okay? Just like Yahuwah came to Abraham and told him that in the 6th month. Okay? Alright. And now we're going back to chapter 16. We read 11 and 12, and then we're going to verse 13. And she, which is Sarah, bare a son in the 3rd month, in the middle of the month, at the time of which Yahuwah had spoken to Abraham, on the festival of first fruits of the harvest. Isaac was born. So the festival, or the Chag of the first fruits of harvest, Isaac was born. Okay? And Abraham circumcised his son on the 8th day. He was the first that was circumcised according to the covenant which is ordained forever. And in the 6th year of the 4th week, we came to Abram to the well of oath, and we appeared unto him, as we had told Sarah, that we should return to her, and she would have conceived a son. And we returned in the 7th month and found Sarah with child before us, and we blessed him, and we announced to him all the things which had been decreed concerning him, that he should not die until he should beget 6 sons more, and see them before he died. But that in Isaac should his name and seed be called. Okay, that's talking about Keturah, Abraham's 3rd wife. He had 6 sons with her, but that's not where the blessing comes. The blessing comes through Isaac. Okay, so that was, if you guys don't know about Keturah, Abraham's 3rd wife. Okay, let's see where we are at now. Verse 17. And that all the seeds of his son should be Gentiles, and be reckoned with nations, and be reckoned with the nations. But from the sons of Yosef, one should become a holy seed, which we know as Yahusha, and should not be reckoned among the nations. For he should become a portion of the Most High, and all his seed had fallen into possession of Elohim, that it should be unto Yahuwah a people for his possession, above all nations, that it should become a nation, become a kingdom and priest and a holy nation. And we went our way, and we announced to Sarah all that we had told him, and they both rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And he built there an altar to Yahuwah, who had delivered him, and who was making him rejoice in the land of his sojourning. And he celebrated the festival of joy in this month, 7 days near the altar which he had built at the well of oaths. And he built booths for himself and his servants on this festival, and he was the first to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles on this earth. So, basically, 7:15, Abraham and Sarah were so excited and filled with joy. It's the first time anyone celebrated tabernacles on this earth. Now, does that say that in our Bible? No, it don't. Can we disprove this in Jubilees by our Bible? No, we cannot. So, a lot of times people say, well, the Messiah was born in the Feast of Tabernacles. Well, maybe, maybe not. But with the Luke chapter 1, verse 26, if Miriam conceived in the 6th month, there's no way he could have been born on the 7th month of the year. He would have been born on 3/15. So, it gets even more interesting in the book of Jubilees. Guess who else was born on 3/15? Judah. Judah was born on 3/15 in the book of Jubilees as well. And so, it just started really clicking. It's like, okay. And in the book of Jubilees, Shabaout, or the Feast of Weeks, or the Chag of Weeks, is 7 days long. All right? And so it is in Mount Sinai with Moses and the children of Israel. Now, when you go to Deuteronomy chapter 16, and you read about the Chag of Weeks, it doesn't say anything, and count 50 days, and count 50 days, and count 50 days. It's not there. And there is no second witness whatsoever in all of our scriptures that says, and count 50. So, in my mind, okay, just my mind, all right, if there's no second witness in scripture, I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. Okay, so, and it says, and count 50. Well, people do that and try and make it fit here, make it fit there, make it fit here, make it fit there, and it doesn't fit. All right, it could be possible to fit way back in the 4th month, the 29th day, possible. Okay, about the wheat, but when the Yisrael, during that time, they planted winter wheat, and it was always right around 3:15. I planted winter wheat last year, and it's just getting ready to be ripe. Just here, Ricky Tick. So, but I know I should have planted it just a little later or sooner in the fall than what I did, because I had to get a field ready, and then I had to get my brother-in-law with his tractor and his planter to plant my field, and trying to get all that coordinated took me 2, 3, almost a month in last fall, even to get my winter wheat planted when I should have had it already in the ground. But today, come Wednesday of this, in 2 or 3 days from now, this is Saturday, or a lot of folks are doing their Sabbath today, and I don't mind if they do their Sabbaths on Saturday. I don't. My Sabbath is on Wednesday this month, on the phases of the moon, and I got a lot of people asking me about the lunar solar calendar, and again, this is the 7th day for myself without a cigarette, and you know, my wife had just passed away 3 weeks ago, so, or 2 weeks, I don't even know anymore, and I don't care, but, well, I do care, because I'm mad at her right now, because I'm mad that she left me, you know, left me in this predicament. But, you know, somebody on Facebook said, well, you're going to be mad, and today I was mad. I was just kind of chewing her out, because she wasn't supposed to leave me here. But anyway, that's not here nor there. Hopefully you study this out, look it up, okay? I gave you the verses. You can do what you want with them. You can continue on, because, and the day following, oh yeah, oh, I was going to tell you how I count that, okay? Here we have matzah, the Chag of matzah, okay, the 15th to the 22nd, okay? And it says the Sabbath after the wave sheaf offering, which would be the 22nd, not the 15th. All right, so from the 22nd, you count 7 weeks from the 22nd, and you'll be right on 3:15 every time. 7 weeks. Okay, so you got matzah, okay, all 7 days, and then after matzah, you count 7 weeks, complete weeks, and you'll always be at 3:15. Now, if you start putting, and then the day here, and then count 50, and blah, 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 you'll be all over the map. And that's where everybody is right now. They're all over the map. Yahuwah doesn't do that. He's very precise and very specific, and he follows order, okay? And so, if that's the case, 1:15, 3:15, 7:15, end of discussion. All of them are on full moons. They're all 7 days long. Yada yada yada, and it just pans out so beautifully. And especially seeing that Isaac was born there, Judah was born there, quite possibly the Messiah was born there, and well, This Wednesday's my 59th birthday, so I might have been. I don't know. Anyway, you guys have a blessed and beautiful evening, and we'll talk to you soon. Shalom.